come. You play with fire and burn.
So this is the part of the project that gets long, it gets tiresome, it gets tedious, and to be completely honest with you, I'm not really feeling it. The next step is all a bunch of little things that have to come together to make one thing function properly, and that's making the back firewall in this thing, modifying it from its original position, making sure all the tubes that I recently put through it are going to fit properly, and everything lines up, everything is sealed, keeps me safe, keeps the truck solid, and still maintains a good look. A huge part of this project requires redesigning, rebuilding, reconstructing a lot of parts of this vehicle. So something I didn't really plan out too much was this part of the build. I'm kind of going with it and figuring it out as I go. But right now, the biggest issue, the biggest thing in my way is chunks of the body that have been left over from what I cut, jagged edges, protruding parts. There's a bunch of pieces that are in my way. They're old, they're rusty, they're sharp, they're not conformed at all, they're all in the wrong ways, they're all ugly, and I need to get past that to do what I have to do next. So in order to have the job done well, have enough room to work, I had to cut these out with the grinder. It was a really tough to get to spot, so it proved to be a pretty big challenge. And then since I was in there, I took the wire brush to it and started cleaning it out, because there's nothing worse than trying to work around a dirty, nasty, rusty surface and then trying to weld to it. Never turns out good. If your metal's not clean when you weld, it's gonna spatter, it's gonna make holes, it's gonna make a real mess, it's gonna stink, it's gonna be terrible. So the best thing is to make sure everything is clean and clear, so you have room to work, you're safe, and everything turns out solid and good and conform, and then you're satisfied after. Cleaning up your work and making new spots to work and opening up areas to look at and to figure things out in always proves to be a good thing, because you see things that you didn't see before. A perfect example is going to be parts of the frame that I could have welded more solid. I added extra pieces of metal to stiffen everything up and got in there with the welder and made sure I got it good and hot so that the pieces that I added to the frame would be completely connected to the new frame. All the metal molecules melted in there together and it's more solid than it was stock. And importantly, I needed to weld the cage to the frame to the body and make everything in this vehicle, make everything in this ride become one. It's got to be a solid, strong piece, so when I take it out on the track and make it do what it's supposed to do, that it performs properly and it doesn't bend and twist and shake apart on me. Part of the structure that I planned to do to connect the roll cage to the actual chassis of the car was to put these pipes in between the kick-ups on the frame where it goes up over the rear differential to the back of the roll cage that I have put inside the cab of the car. Since I'm working in the bottom of the cab right now, everything is open and clear. There's nothing in my way. It's a perfect time to put these through. I'm gonna have to plan out something that I can put sheet metal around it and have it look good and have it be solid. But right now, I'm gonna get these pipes through there, measure them up, make sure they're the right length, do the throat line cuts on it so it fits on the roll cage nicely. And then on the back where the kick-ups are, quite simply put, I can put the pipe next to the chassis and use the line of the chassis to draw a straight line. It's gonna come out clean and clear, it's gonna look great. I made sure both sides were exact same length, exact same dimensions, everything fit properly. It was in the same position on the kick-up as it was on the roll cage, so everything was centered. When it looked good, I tacked it together, take another look, make sure everything's good, double measure, and then weld it in solid when you know you got the right thing going on. Now that I'm running these pipes through from the cage to the kick-ups before I put the sheet metal in, I can't drill holes through the sheet metal inside the piping in because now it's in there and it's permanent. So what I'm going to have to do is make some sort of brace, some sort of metal that travels up to the tube, and something I can anchor my sheet metal to from both sides. That way I have a solid piece to mount to, and if I would ever have to take off some panels, I don't have to remove the entire rear panel or cut the pieces that have the pipes through it. I can just remove the individual panels by hopefully just grinding off the welds, or worst case, if I have to, we'll take the plasma cutter to it and call it a day. To get this done, my plan is to take a piece of sheet metal, the stuff that I used for most of the fabrication for it, the big sheet that I have, and I'm going to drill 2 holes through it. Then I'm going to cut those out as rectangle pieces with the hole in the center, cut that center piece of the hole, which gives me the opportunity to put it into the cage, into the chassis of the truck. It'll be part of the rear firewall, so one piece will be on top, one piece will be on the bottom. When they're both connected, it'll completely surround the tube. I could weld it on, weld it together, weld those tabs to the firewall and floor of the ElCamino, and then sheet metal the rest of it around the sides. Everything should be good, everything should be solid. I think it's going to be good. After punching it, drilling pilot holes, make sure everything was lined up, everything was straight, it was time to pull out the hole saw. Now, I haven't used this for a while, I don't know what kind of good shape it's in, so I had to find the proper size, and then I had to set it all up. Put it in the drill press, make sure it was locked down, everything was good and solid. Now this is going to grab the metal pretty tough, so you want to make sure that your chuck key is perfectly tightened. You want to do one of every hole in there, go around all 3 spots, make sure it's good and level, kind of like when you torque your wheels. And then you got to make sure that the drill bit is good, it's straight, and that it's going to go through. And in my case, well, the drill bit is broken and I do not have a replacement. So I had to do the best that I could. What I did was I pre-drilled the hole to the proper size for the drill bit that comes in the hole saw, and then put it down in the vise, put it down on the drill press, and went to town. Now to make sure it didn't move too much, I used a really big clamp, and then I also used some wooden blocks underneath it so that the drill had somewhere to go while the hole saw was working, and that when I did actually get through it, I didn't put the hole saw directly into the bottom of the drill press, which is very hard steel and would definitely destroy that hole saw. So the pieces of wood added like an extra cushion, and it gave me a bit of grip and a bit more traction to get what I had to do. The main issue here though is that you have to go super slow. It grabs, it'll stop the drill press, which is probably a good thing because it stops it from spinning around and breaking my fingers or breaking something inside the drill press. So you got to go very gentle. I use WD-40 to keep everything moving smoothly. You'd think almost it wouldn't grab, but it does. It works great. You can hear it, you spray it on, things get hot. The WD-40 not only lubricates your metal when you're trying to cut it, makes it easier to spin the blade, but it also keeps it cool, and that keeps it from breaking. Once the holes were drilled and everything looked pretty satisfactory, I test fitted it, make sure that I could slide a pipe through there, and lo and behold, it went through without a problem. It was a perfectly snug fit, so I guess the measurements on the saw were correct. So after that was done, the holes were good, everything passes through, everything clears. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chop it right down in half through the center of the holes. Now the thing is, I should have done it long ways first because it would have made a more uniform connection when I put it together, and I should have used some sort of technique to make sure that those lines were much straighter, because I got it all chopped out, made this one piece with 2 holes into it into 4 pieces so that I could cover both sides of the job that I'm doing. If you're following, you know what I'm saying? Even I'm lost, it's okay. So I cut it all out, and then all that's left now is basically put it in the chassis. Now I should have taken my time a little bit more on this, but this is like one of those weird things where I wasn't feeling it and I was kind of getting down on it, and I kept moving and I kept going. Maybe I should have took a little break from it, but I didn't. But now that I see how it kind of turned out, I'm a little disappointed, but I promise I'll make up for it more in the near future. It was just a minor thing where it's time to move on to the next thing.